Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Weather Nerds. I am your first alert weather nerd, CD Finley, sitting here with you. And I apologize for the very late start. Obviously, we kind of had to delay this episode by a day because, frankly, it's been a very, very busy work week for us here in the weather department. And of course, we'll get to that here in just a moment. That's good news because we have a lot of things to cover in this week's episode. But, and again, apologize for the late start. We had originally planned this yesterday, starting it up today. We actually don't have a noon show for today's show or shows as well. So getting a lot of coverage here on this week's episodes of Weather Nerds. So let's go ahead and jump straight on into it. Obviously, very, very busy week in the weather department, and not even just that, but in the astronomy department as well, so to speak. Lots of things going on with the lunar eclipse from this past Friday, which was about a week ago at this point at the time of this episode and at the time of this recording. And then we've also had a slew of weather events. I mean, we've had everything from severe weather to obviously the dust storms that everyone's been having to deal with here in Texas and even in some of the far eastern states, which is just absurd to me. And then other kind of fun events that we have going on as well. So let's go ahead and jump right onto it. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of these really cool pictures that were taken of the lunar eclipse from this past Friday. And again, that's this past Friday, either the 13th or the 14th. Should be the 14th, I believe. Let me check. Yeah, this past Friday, the March 14th, is when this lunar eclipse occurred. So this is actually a picture that was taken by NASA. This here, you can see that blood red moon, at totality with that eclipse. And one of the cool things about this lunar eclipse in particular is that we actually got to see both sides of it. So obviously this is what it looks like from the perspective of us here on Earth, but this is what it looks like from the perspective if you were standing on the moon. Again, you can kind of see for all of you Central Texans who have been around here for pretty much since last April at the very least, you'll remember that total solar eclipse that we had. Well, this is practically the same situation. You got that little diamond ring effect going on there around the perimeter of the Earth's shadow. Very, very, really cool to see this. This is actually taken by yet another Texas-based company who sent their moon rover to the moon just in the last, in pretty recent memory. This is the Firefly moon rover that took this picture here. So pretty neat stuff there. And then, of course, I myself was also out that night, late that night. I mean, totality happened around 2 a.m. that Friday morning, I believe. And of course, I took some of my own photos as well. A shout out to my dad for letting me take his camera and use it. And actually, we had some pretty funny pictures of me sitting on the ground and using that camera. So, when you don't have a tripod, you kind of have to, get creative with the angles. And of course, this other picture that was snapped here, that's my cousin there on the left. His name is Luke. Shout out, Luke. We were having a whole lot of fun getting to watch that eclipse. But here are some of the photos that I actually got to take with that camera. And you can see this is some pretty high quality stuff there. It's a pretty neat lens that we have there on that. I believe it's a Nikon camera. But you can see this is actually just before, about an hour or two before totality. The Earth's shadow really starting to cover the bottom part of the moon there. And then as we get closer to totality, kind of a similar effect, if I'm honest, to the diamond ring. This is another photo that I snapped that night. You can see a little bit of that top part of the moon being illuminated just before the moon eventually does fully go blood red. That's the best photo that I could get there. It's a little bit blurry, so you'll have to forgive that, but the best photo I could get from laying there on the ground. But pretty neat stuff. Obviously, we in Central Texas, we're not the only people to experience that. That was pretty much something that the entire hemisphere experienced. But pretty interesting nonetheless. And I do want to point out, I know in the past few episodes we've been having some audio issues, and I think I've discovered that we only run into audio issues when we go to a website. So this episode, I'm going to do my best not to run into any websites. I've got just about anything and everything that we should need pulled up here with photos and stuff like that. But again, that's a little bit about that lunar eclipse. If you didn't get to catch it, there you go. There's some pretty neat photos of it, and pretty historical too, considering the fact that we were able to see what it looks like from the moon's perspective for the first time in human history. That's pretty neat. In other news, weather-wise, obviously we've been dealing with all of that West Texas dust. And actually, if I can pull it up, I would like to show you this really interesting screen grab that we took from, oh gosh, when would this have been? Oh, and it may not even be there anymore, so I apologize. I may not actually get to show you this. I may work on that here in just a little bit, but essentially there was a GOES satellite picture that was a screen grab that I took about 2 hours before that West Texas dust storm, the third one of the past 2 weeks, was getting going from this past Friday. No, it was not this past Friday. Man, I gotta get my dates right. I'm all kinds of turnaround. This would have been this past Tuesday, I believe. Yes, Tuesday, because the dust actually, very rare that this happens, moved in overnight on Wednesday morning, and so treated us to a bit of a crazy looking sunset, or sunrise rather, here in Central Texas. But we'll take a look at that here in just a few moments. First and foremost, I want to talk about what happened with all that dust. Obviously, the second dust event that we had from the last 2 weeks, and it's crazy that I'm saying even up to 3 events, covered a lot of our cars. We actually had some late night rain chances from this past Friday, where all of that dust that was hanging up in the air really mixed with the water as it fell, and that caused some issues for a lot of people's cars, including my own. This right here you're about to see is a video that I took of my car before I was heading on my way to work the day after, and you can just see how coated it is here. Yeah, look at that. All those little dots of dust, and I'll be honest, it still probably looks like this. If you were to walk outside the station right now, you would see my car. It still probably looks like this. And the crazy thing to me is that after this happened, obviously, we need to get some rain out in West Texas. If we can't get any rain out in West Texas, this is probably something that we'll have to continue dealing with, at least for the foreseeable future. And it's kind of, and the thing that sucks about this kind of weather setup is that dust is very, very hard to predict. That's not necessarily something that our weather models will pick up on. It all kind of depends on the timing and arrival of frontal boundaries and dry lines. And for example, this past dust event that we had from this past late Tuesday evening, Wednesday morning, there was a dry line that was out in front of the cold front. And as the cold front pushed through and caught up with the dry line, that picked up all those winds in West Texas. So that kind of thing is really the only thing that we can look out for in anticipation of, large wind events and dust events. So with that being said, it might not hurt to use a little bit of caution in the near future if you're planning on washing your car. I tried to use a little bit of caution. I actually, instead of taking my car to a full-on car wash, which, by the way, those car wash lines this past week, man, were they busy. It's a great week to be the owner of a car wash. But instead of taking it to a car wash, I actually just washed it down with a hose. And honestly, even that wasn't enough to get all the dirt off of my car. It got it off, most of it, but if you look really closely, you can still see the little itty-bitty dots of dirt that are sticking on there. So definitely been windy, dusty. That's been the name of the game here in Central Texas for the past week or even 2 weeks, it seems. But while we've been dealing with all this dust and winds and fire danger and all of that of the sort, which, by the way, that's another big headline from this past week, that Fredericksburg fire just to the west of Austin was pretty large. So we've obviously been giving you updates on that via our newsroom. But while we've been dealing with all that kind of severe weather, the Midwest and even some of the southern states have been dealing with a different kind of severe weather. I actually stole this image here from livestormchasers.com. This obviously was not yesterday to today. This was actually, at the time of this recording, at least a good 2, 3, maybe even 4 days ago from by now. But you can see the number of tornado warnings that were issued across places like Missouri, Illinois, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, even parts of Georgia and Tennessee at times. Pretty large storm system that rolled through there. And you can see, even just based on that map, St. Louis got hit pretty hard with some tornadoes there. And I even know I was actually watching another wonderful meteorologist. He unfortunately doesn't work for our company that owns us here at KWTX, but very well known in the weather community. James Spann works for ABC 3340 out in Birmingham, Alabama. Very well known meteorologist, very great guy. I was watching some of his coverage on that event, and unfortunately it sounded like some trailer parks and stuff like that were leveled through by tornadoes that rolled through Alabama just within this past week. So it's definitely been very, very busy just about all over the nation. And meanwhile, while we've had those tornado warnings and stuff going on, we were also talking about, blizzard warnings in the middle of the northern plains. So just about anything and everything that you can imagine weather-wise has been happening in the last few days. Again, at the time of this recording, if you're watching this live here on March 20th, which, by the way, first day of spring, happy spring. Spring has sprung officially at 4:01 a.m. as of this morning. Yeah, just about anything, everything has been happening. Obviously, with spring coming up, we're probably going to see some more crazy severe weather events like this, especially as we head towards the months of April and May. But that's why we always are out here trying to keep you all safe, which is also the reason why, kind of talking more about local events and things that we've had going on here at our station with the weather team. I was actually out at TSTC yesterday for Safety Day. They had us come out there and visit and talk with people about severe weather awareness. Also talk to people a little bit about our First Alert Weather app, which if you haven't downloaded that already, I know I may be a little bit biased, but you most definitely should, because it's a fantastic way to receive all of your weather information. We were out there talking a little bit about all of that. So this image that I took here, obviously I took the Weather Explorer out there to kind of show off to everybody. That's everybody always gets a kick out of getting to see our Storm Chase vehicles. And obviously this is one of the two vehicles that we actually have. We have the Weather Edge, which is a little bit of an older vehicle, but still just as capable. So, yeah, got to show that off a little bit, gave out a few KWTX wristbands and little Project Tornado pamphlets, which if you don't know what Project Tornado is, that's something our chief meteorologist, Brady Taylor, has been doing, visiting, elementary schools and talking a little bit about tornado safety and stuff like that. And then another cool picture that I actually grabbed. This has a pretty cool story behind it. So I was actually parked right next to a project that was done by a lot of the TSTC students and their automotive program. So this was a picture I snapped yesterday. This is a 1965, and TSTC people correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe from what I heard, it's a 1965 Ford Mustang coupe that has the soft top, drop top, whatever you want to call it, fully restored by their automotive program. It's a beautiful, beautiful vehicle. You can kind of see the Weather Explorer there in the background, looking pretty ominous back there. But it's pretty cool to see that yesterday, parked up next to them, and getting to see all the cool work that their automotive program has been doing. So that was pretty neat to see. And another cool thing that we got going on here with our weather department and the way of being out in the community and getting to interact with people and all of our viewers, we are actually going to be at Keith Ace Hardware at 2 different locations within the next day or two. So let's go ahead and take a look at this here. This is going to be the first event that we see tomorrow, Friday from noon until 2 o'clock, 907 or 9701 Salem Way, China Spring. That's the Keith Ace Hardware out there in China Spring. And of course, those of you who know me, I am a native China Springer, so to speak. So I will likely pop out there for just a little bit before I head my way into work. But you'll be able to meet us, meet and greet the First Alert Weather Team. Likely tomorrow at the China Spring one, it'll be me and Chief Meteorologist Brady Taylor for the most time. We'll also have the First Alert Weather Explorer out there. So if you didn't get to see us at the TSTC event yesterday, you should pop by China Spring tomorrow from Friday, March 21st, noon till 2. And then again, if you miss us out in the China Spring event, we'll actually be out at 1424 Hewitt Drive on Saturday, 9 to 11 a.m. And again, you can do all the same stuff. We'll have the Weather Explorer out there. I don't know if I'll be out there for the Saturday one, but Chief Meteorologist Brady Taylor most certainly will be. And you can also learn a little bit about Thunder Call. We actually have a free service that you can sign up for that'll alert you to all kinds of weather events that we have going on, especially with spring coming up, or spring already here, rather. That is something that you'll definitely want to do. And you can also learn a little bit more about the features of our First Alert Weather app as well. So that's something I wanted to mention just a little bit because that's obviously something pretty fun. We always love getting to interact with you and our viewers and our community. It's probably one of my favorite parts about my job, if I'm being totally honest with you. So that'll be something that we got coming up here in the next few days. And one more thing before we get to the forecast that we actually have coming up. And obviously, if you're watching here live on Facebook, here in just a little bit, I'll actually cut it here. We have a pre-recorded forecast for First Alert meteorologist Sean Billafury that will be uploaded here around noon, mainly because we actually don't have a noon show today. You can thank March Madness basketball for that one. But before we get to the nitty-gritty with the forecast, one other thing I do want to mention, and not to toot my own horn here, but other things that we have going on behind the scenes. I'm actually going to the Waco Convention Center later on this afternoon. The China Spring ISD Education Foundation has reached out to me. Obviously, again, those of you who know me, I'm native China Spring, been born, raised China Spring my whole life, went to their kindergarten through high school. They reached out to me, and they're supposedly honoring me as a distinguished alum later on tonight at 6:30. So obviously that'll probably be something that you'll see on social media or through our Facebook or newscasts and things of the like. So just wanted to kind of put that out there because honestly that's a little bit of a surprise for me. So but yeah, so that's what we got kind of going on behind the scenes in terms of the weather department. So let's go ahead and take one last look here at what we got going on with the forecast in the upcoming week. And again, this is, for those of you catching the pre-recorded on the Degrees of Science YouTube channel, this is recording and live right now on Facebook, March 20th, 2025. So this is for the upcoming week after this. So let's go ahead and take a look here and pull up our weather graphics, if I can find it. There we go. So again, today is the first day of spring, March 20th. Spring has officially sprung. You can see it switching from, a little bit of snowfall there to some more green grass. Obviously, bluebonnet season here in Central Texas. So spring has sprung. Officially started at 4:01 a.m. this morning. And again, over the next 7 days, we are mainly talking temperatures back in the 70s and 80s. And I don't know that 10% is quite enough for Sunday, if I'm being totally honest with you. But we do actually have a chance for some severe weather in the eastern half of our area coming up at the end of this weekend. You can see here, this is Sunday, March 23rd. This is what the Weather Service calls a severe possible tag, otherwise just known as a 15% chance, so to speak, of severe thunderstorms along and east of the I-35 corridor. Heading into the end of this upcoming weekend. So again, this is Sunday, March 23rd that we're looking at here. So with that in mind, though, that means, unfortunately, for those of you who are west of the I-35 corridor, likely not going to get any of that relief. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, we need some rain out there in West Texas to kind of hinder that dust a little bit. And unfortunately, it looks here, according to your First Alert Futurecast, that will not be the case. That frontal boundary will approach late Sunday evening, early Monday morning, and increase those rain chances along and east of I-35. But beyond that, that's really all we're talking about. And in terms of that severe weather risk, we're talking maybe large hail being the one and only threat, maybe some strong winds as well. Obviously, we're still a few days away from seeing this come to fruition, and we're not even talking about a whole lot of rainfall either. Is the sad part. We're maybe talking maybe a tenth of an inch between the I-35 and I-45 corridors by Monday morning. So not much of a washout. Again, just watching that potential for some isolated severe thunderstorms. Nothing too different from what we've seen over the last few days. And again, we're even maybe seeing a few more rain chances pop up at the end of next week, which is, again, a little bit too far away for any specifics, but something worth keeping an eye on at the very least. So in the way of fire danger, obviously that's been a big story from the last few days. This is the fire danger heading into tomorrow, your Friday, March 21st. Again, mainly across the western half of the area. Texas A&M Forest Service is anticipating extreme fire conditions out there. So that fire danger risk is likely going to continue. But the good news is, heading into Saturday, that alleviates a little bit. So we should maybe get a little bit of a break by the end of the weekend, especially with those rain chances. But again, here on that weather planner, we're highlighting tomorrow for that windy fire danger. Also highlighting Sunday for the potential of some stray strong thunderstorms, as I mentioned. But beyond that, we're sticking with temperatures 70s and 80s, very dry over much of the next week or so. So that is what we got going on. Thank you all so much for tuning in today. I really appreciate it. Hopefully the audio kind of checks out this time. I'm sure I'll see here in the pre-recorded thing once I upload it to the Degrees of Science YouTube channel, which, by the way, those of you who are watching on Facebook, if you're not able to catch the live show for Weather Nerds, obviously you can hop into the Degrees of Science YouTube channel. We put all the pre-recording things there. Unfortunately, episode 1 didn't go up on the Degrees of Science YouTube channel because, again, we ran into way too many audio issues. But thankfully now, episode 2 and onward, they're all on there. So if you want to go check those out, feel free. But yeah, that's just about everything that we got going on for Weather Nerds today. Again, thank you for tuning in for episode number 4. That's about a month of Weather Nerds now, which is kind of crazy to think about. Of course, we'll see you again next week. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be able to keep the same schedule. So next week, anticipate maybe a Wednesday 11 a.m. live show. And of course, we'll pre-record it and push it out over our Weather App and Degrees of Science YouTube channels as well. Otherwise, you'll hear from me on my Facebook page, CD Finley KWTX, whether or not we'll have that going on time. Right now, anticipating that it will, though. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it, and I hope you all have a wonderful week ahead.